As we've been working through John, it's been so clear that John wants us to know the divinity of God. That's to say that Jesus really is God. Troy mentioned last week that 7 times Jesus says, I am. He also pointed out that in chapter 17, it says sent 17 times in that prayer. Jesus was sent into the world, and Jesus has also sent us, Jesus also sent us into the world. John has not been shy on showing us who Christ is and who has given Christ his authority. Now, I've learned something about my best friend, Troy, that for certain things, when he offers a suggestion, that really means that he's saying, you should do this. So, per his suggestion, we're going to stay parked in chapter 17. We're going to look at it again this week and the next week. Let's read John 17, verses 6 through 19. That's where we're going to be looking this morning. I have revealed you. Let's start over. I have revealed you to those whom you gave me out of the world. They were yours. You gave them to me, and they have obeyed your word. Now they know that everything you have given me comes from you. For I gave them the words you gave me, and they accepted them. They knew with certainty that I came from you, and they believed that you sent me. I pray for them. I'm not praying for the world. Am I cutting in and out? Is that kind of? Yeah? All right. I'm not praying for the world, but for those you have given me, for they are yours. All I have is yours, and all you have is mine. And glory has come to me through them. I will remain in the world no longer, but they are still in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them by the power of your name, the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one. While I was with them, I protected them and kept them safe by that name you gave me. None has been lost except the one doomed to destruction, so that Scripture will be fulfilled. I am coming to you now, but I say these things while I am still in the world, so that they may have the full measure of my joy within them. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. For them I sanctify myself, that they too may be truly sanctified. I want to look at the word sanctify. When we look in this passage, and in Strong's Greek concordance, it says that hagidzo, or sanctify, means to separate from things profane and to dedicate to God, to consecrate, and so render inviolable. It's a lot of words, right? I'm getting irritated by this. It's crackling and stuff, and I don't know if you can hear it, but where I am, I can hear it a lot, and so it's distracting to me. So we will count on God to provide his message through the distraction. Actually, we're going to fix this. We have a game plan. After I'm done, I will hand the mic back off to Bill. Okay, so turn this other one off just to make sure. Okay, where were we? Hagidzo, right? To sanctify. That's to separate from things profane and to dedicate to God, to consecrate, and so render inviolable. So, what does that all mean? Never to be, what does inviolable mean? I had to look that one up. Never to be broken, infringed, or dishonored. So, let's put us all together. To be sanctified means to never be broken away from the specific dedication to God. That's what sanctify means. To never be broken away from the specific dedication to God. Once something is truly sanctified, it cannot be torn away from its purpose of being dedicated to God. That's not what I have. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. I added notes. Okay, sorry. You're with me, and I am with you, and we are now together, except for you're not in my head. Later on, we'll get to that. Just hang on. Keep that in mind. Remember that Jesus is the one who's praying this. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, you have sent them into the world. For I sanctify myself, that they too may be truly sanctified. And in John 1:1, we read, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. If we are sanctified through God's Word, clearly we are sanctified through Christ. Because Jesus is God, God is the Word, Jesus is the Word. I know that seems kind of round and round, but I think John is wanting us to see that because we have Christ, and we are with God. And if we have God, we have Christ. And by default, when something is set apart for God, it becomes God's, obviously. I'll let all that stew around for a little while I'll talk about back in the day when I was a kid. I realize I'm still just a kid for some of you out here. Growing up, my dad and mom did a great job at making sure we were dedicated to God. That we set apart time and energy, money, and we were actively putting God in place of other things. We moved to Dallas, Texas from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, so Dad could go to preaching school. From Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, one of the most beautiful places ever in the whole world, especially in the continental United States, from Coeur d'Alene to Dallas, Texas. Exactly. He was dedicating his family to God so that he can become a better instrument for God, to become a minister. In spending 3 years there, we visited a few churches, a couple of which were very large and had really big youth groups. As a young teenager, that was very exciting for me. But Dad got plugged into a small church where there wasn't a youth group. So my siblings, us 5 of us, we were the youth group. And that wasn't as much fun as being able to hang out with a lot of other kids. But we did it anyway. And through that, we understood it was the right thing to do. From Dallas area, we moved back to Coeur d'Alene, and finally, we had a youth group, about 15 to 20 kids that we were able to hang out with. They were good influences. We knew them from before, and it was great to be back home. But that only lasted a few months before we moved to Astoria. We did understand that Coeur d'Alene was just going to be a pit stop, and that was just something, just a small part of time that we would move on. And so we moved to Astoria. And again, us 5 kids were the youth group, plus a couple others. A few months later, Dawn, my oldest sibling, moved away. And then a year later, my sister moved away. And so then the youth group really became small again. But all the while, I got plugged in with some other kids who went to a couple other small churches in the small town of Astoria. And together, about 10 of us made up our own youth group. Collectively, we started a prayer group that prayed once a week, every week, in the morning before school started. But I didn't have that boldness on my own. It was because I was trained in how to do that. As a kid, I was sanctified, not really by my choice, but by my parents' choice. And I really was the odd one at school, other than a select few, who actually went to church. I stuck up for Jesus. I never swore. I never went to parties. I never drank or chewed or went with girls that did. But all the while, life was good. I had peace, and I had joy. I was never burdened with the what ifs or if only that so many people struggle with. Because I was sanctified, God was glorified. And because God was glorified, He blessed me with peace and with joy. This has continued throughout my life, an amazing peace and comfort, a joy and fullness that has been overwhelmingly good. And Carrie and I have been purposeful in our life to God. As you might know, we met at Cascade College, just across campus. We got married right after graduating, and I went from being the youth intern at Central to being the youth minister. Carrie looked for a job for a couple of months and finally landed a solid job at a credit union downtown. Meanwhile, my job at the church ended. The contract was up, and it wasn't renewed. The first ministry job I ever had, I was let go of. I did get hired on pretty quickly at a local place, Crosscut Hardwoods, somewhat quickly. And it's a store specializing in domestic and exotic hardwoods. This was one time in my life when I didn't feel like I belonged. I felt out of place, like I wasn't really supposed to be there, but still, I never felt abandoned or lost. My boss was good at books and dealing with customers and good at pleasing his bosses. He, however, was not so good at not cussing. His language, to say the least, was bad. And he was consistently angry at small things. And everyone in the shop would walk around on eggshells around him and do what they could to avoid making any mistake at all. But at the end of the day, he would smile, shake our hand, and make nice, which was super frustrating. Because if he understood that he should make nice at the end of the day, why then in the middle of the day would he not try to do the same thing? But I digress. While working there, I put in an application for a couple places to be a minister. None of those panned out. The church I was going to closed. The next church I went to closed. Then the place I was a shoo-in for the youth ministry job, they decided to go with a volunteer group of leaders, so that job closed. They went with something else. In the course of about 6 months, I had prayed and fasted 2 different times. And in that time, in those 2 different times that I dedicated to God for prayer and fasting, I got no answer from God. No answer. Here's the deal. I fasted 4 times. For 4 days both times. 4 days. And I didn't get anything from God. Nothing. The first time, I didn't get any sort of a feeling like, yes, David, I've heard your prayers, and I think you should do this, or I think you should do that. It was nothing. And a few months later, I tried it again. I thought, well, maybe I came to God poorly. Maybe I was trying to twist God's arm to giving me something. And so I approached it with an open mind, an open heart, trying to be a servant. And again, same thing. Nothing. An absence of feeling even. No emotion, no drive to keep looking, nothing. But nothing was the thing. I was supposed to feel nothing. I felt no sense of pain, no sense of anxiety, no hurt, no sadness, just nothing. So in the midst of nothing, I actually got everything. And because of nothing, I decided that I would just dedicate myself to ministering at Crosscut. And so I did. I openly talked about God. I openly invited my coworkers to church. I re-sanctified my life to God. And that's when it happened. God sent Tom Jr. to me. He invited Carrie and me over for dinner and asked if I'd be interested in the youth ministry position here at Eastside. You see, when I was at Crosscut and when I had prayed and fasted, God did hear me. He didn't let me down. He didn't fail me. He gave me nothing, which at the time was everything. He gave me the gift of not feeling anxious or not feeling worried. He gave me the gift of not needing to get out of that place of employment. Because I was sanctified to God, He gave me joy and He gave me peace. Now, speeding along to the present, Carrie and I have taken cues from our parents, and we have sanctified our family to God. Our kids are missing out on some of the worst things about being in the world. It's very easy to look and see that things are messed up. The pain and suffering in our world, it's just not right. Now, we've decided to shelter our kids. We have. And I do understand that even going to Columbia, there are plenty of things that our kids see and hear and know about. But they are sheltered from so much of the torrents of what the world might rain down on them. They've grown up going to Columbia and being involved here. And it's not terribly uncommon for my kids to be running around in this place 7 days a week. And as a result, my kids don't have the worries or the concerns that I see so many others having. My family is sanctified. We are set apart to do God's work. All throughout the Bible, we can see God has called His people to be sanctified, to be a set apart for Him. And when they did that, His children flourished. They really did. And when they didn't, when they followed things other than God, his children really suffered some nasty consequences. But that's just life, isn't it? You break a rule, you suffer the consequences. Go ahead and try to break the rule of gravity. Things will come down pretty hard. Try to break the rule of inertia. You're going to smash into a wall. Try breaking one of mom's rules. Things are going to happen. God allows consequences, both natural and that of what a parent might bring. Here's the deal, though. When we live as sanctified people, we have God's perfect joy. In spite of the things around us, God has loved us so much that he has given us Jesus. And even though we are in the world, we are not of the world. God has given us his Spirit. He's given us Jesus. We have Jesus. We have peace. We have the Spirit. We know joy. Because Jesus has set us apart from the world, we have joy. I am coming to you now, but I say these things while I am still here in the world, so that they may have the full measure of my joy within them. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. For them I sanctify myself, that they too may be truly sanctified. Now, joy isn't Joy isn't blind happiness. It is the overall peace and calm with a sense of good despite surroundings. Holistically, I think joy may be the opposite of worry compounded by stress. I was recently asked, what do I do when I get stressed or anxious? Quite simply, I really don't get stressed or anxious very often. And I want to make something clear. I live a very simple life. But who's to say that simplistic and ease of life isn't because I live a sanctified life? Does one beget the other? There have been many times when my kids' health have been in concern. Those of you who are parents or grandparents know the burden of feeling anxious for your kids. Examples include allergies that require an EpiPen, a heart murmur, a CAT scan for unexplained headaches spanning weeks on end, and some unexplained deep pin-sized hole at the base of the spine. I have had plenty cause for worry, but in the midst of it, I've never been overwhelmed. And why? My only explanation is because I'm faithful to God, God is faithful to me. Because my life is sanctified, set apart for God, God has set apart joy and peace for me and for my family. I don't have to worry about this life, and what I'm in for, because I know even at the end there will be no more pain, there will be no more sorrow, and there will be no more death. Where is your joy? When you go to the store, do people smile at you? A lot smile at me, but that's because I am purposeful about smiling to everyone I see. Obviously, there are times when I'm in a rush and I just keep my head buried down so I don't run into people and lose track of time. But all in all, I look up. I let them have the right of way. I let them go to the shelf that might be behind me, and I try to serve. I give joy wherever I can. And here's a tough question, though. What if your thoughts, what if my thoughts were just out loud for everybody to hear? What would people hear when you ran into someone that you didn't care for? For instance, what if everybody around could hear your thoughts about those who have differing political views, or parenting rules or values? What would people think when they learned about what you said as you watched them eat their hot dog with mayonnaise on it? Would people cringe at your thoughts? Would you just be an average person? Or would you be different than all those around you? Personally, I like mayonnaise on my hot dog. Have you allowed yourself to be so fully sanctified, that is set apart for God, that whatever comes your way, the only thing people see is joy? Right now, if you've been concerned about dedicating your life to God, let it go. Let God have your life. If you haven't given your life to Christ, in just a second, please come forward. Ask for prayers or to study. Don't wait. And if you've let yourself be burdened by things that are not of God, you too should come forward. You do know what it's like to have peace. Regain that peace by sanctifying yourself again. And if you have any needs or prayers, or if you want to be baptized, please come forward as we stand and sing.